Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Jessie. In my hands, I have this absolute abomination of a rifle, M16A4, that I am borrowing off of my good friend Mike. But before we go any further in this video, hey guys, interruption from future me here, but apparently I was nominated for Breakout Creator of the Year from the Gundies, so I would really appreciate it if you guys would go ahead and give me a vote over there. I'll have the link somewhere around. Maisie would appreciate it too. Thank you. Mike, I've got to give you some shit for this. My boy here decided it was a good idea to get a Knight's Armament rail, which that's not the questionable part. I'm sure a lot of you guys would love to have that. No, Mike decided he was gonna put this expensive ass rail on top of a PSA upper, but to make things worse, he got this $30 Temu Wish.com carry handle that is so wobbly and can't hold zero, you can literally see it walking while you shoot. I don't know if he spent his whole budget just on this part here, but Mike, come on. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, comment down below giving him some grief for this decision, and let's get started. The M16 is a rifle we all absolutely know, whether it's from Call of Duty and Black Ops or the stories that came out of Vietnam to Afghanistan. It's iconic. Every one of you recognizes this, I am sure of it. Like I said before, this is the A4, which was the final installment to the M16 family. It did become the official service weapon for the Marine Corps during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Although she has been in use since 1967. Modern militaries, you'll see it in combination M16s with M4s, though the M16s did fall a little bit out of favor. But nowadays, the military is officially marking the start of the next-gen squad weapon. So I guess that is the end of an era for this very long girl. A4 means this thing has a very big family. Several other installments before we got to this one in my hands, but the original M16 designs were being given out to the Air Force in around 1964. Some changes being made, tweaks along the way to figure out what they wanted, but eventually we got hashed out into the M16A1 that we're all familiar with. These design choices included the forward assist, a chrome-plated bore, and a modified design for the flash hider off of what the original iterations have. Come the 80s, and we're pushing out A2, baby. Pro strats for staying warm in the desert winter. I didn't know we nuked Iraq. Man, that nuclear winter sure does hit hard. Where's this ash and we're like Silent Hill? Hell, either way. The key changes between the A1 and the A2 was the switch over from fully automatic to 3-round bursts. The Marines did receive this change first, usually the case with military weapons, and then trickled their way down to the Army. The next big change came to the rear sights that were put onto the carry handle, which in theory allowed them to get a much more precise zero. Cue the A4 came out around 1997. The version I have in my hands here. And the big difference was to this carry handle. New and improved, these things are now removable, and in this case, it probably should have stayed removed. Mike, come on. The next big addition to that was the inclusion of the quad rail here, which made so much more space for attachments like lasers, foregrips, you name it, whatever. And then obviously the carry handle being removable made so much better space for ACOGs or whatever else they're running up there, but way much more customizability. Now I know I've got a tiny woman brain, but I think I could at least count to 4, enough to realize that I skipped over M16A3, which is actually not a very common thing to find at all. It was only issued to the Navy in extremely tiny quantities, not very common to get your hands on or see. Realistically, as far as I'm concerned, M16A2.1, not much of a big change, but the differences that it did have was instead of being 3-round burst, they wanted to keep the M16A2 version fully automatic. Now, the military as a whole was switching its beliefs at this time, and the doctrine was changing from just mass rounds on target and suppression focused to more of a shift to the mindset of accuracy. And as far as the DoD was concerned, full auto wasn't exactly going to help them get that. So burst was favorable, but they figured fully automatic would still be useful for some more specific niche operations and soldiers. Didn't last very long though, for obvious reasons. The A4 did quickly make its appearance and the 3-round burst was doing better, but the implementation of the carry handle being detachable and the ability to put on those ACOG sights really just quickly pushed the A3 out of the picture. That's why it doesn't exist. That's why you don't see it very often. Even if you've never fired an M16 specifically, I am pretty sure you are familiar with the format of this thing here. Colt popularized the hell out of something everyone watching this video probably has. The AR-15, the civilian version of the M16 rifles. Which, while virtually the same, M16s are typically, well, M16s are the 20-inch barrel length, while the AR-15s you can get in any number of barrel sizes. And then on top of that, the worst difference between the two is in your little switch here. The little giggle switch is full of sadness. On the civilian versions here, you can see I have nothing and disappointment. Whereas in the M16 actual military versions, not my little weird clone here going on, obviously the burst is much more fun. Would prefer the full auto. The Navy was onto something wanting to keep that. We might not have a proper giggle switch, but in the civilian world, we are lucky enough to have so much customization. I mean, hell, the fact that I can even hold a clone like this is cool. The A4 here does come in at about 9 pounds, closer to 10 with a full mag in, and she is about 39.6, about 40 inches tall, which compared to a lot of the other milsurp I've had on this channel featured, really isn't that bad. She's kind of short considering. It is longer, obviously, but nothing too unruly. One interesting thing to note though here, this Knight's foregrip that I have is not connected with a bolt like they typically are. So I don't know if you guys can really give me a second, but when you take this out from the bottom here, you can see how weebly wobbly this entire thing is, which is bizarre. Normally they're held in with a bolt right there on the inside and not by this, which I thought was an interesting design choice. I mean, I don't know how often I'm taking this out to care, but it was worth noting. You can see once it's in, it's not budging anywhere. I'm budging, the gun's budging in my hands. Some interesting things about this rifle that I noticed after actually having used it was although this is shorter and lighter than something like the AG-42 or the FAL, I actually think it has a lot more perceived weight and length to it, if that makes sense. There's a few reasons that I came up with that I think that might be the case why. One of them being the massive handguard here. Someone's gonna make this pervy, you guys suck, but you can see I can hardly fit my hands around this. This is massive, uncomfortable for me to hold for extended periods of time, whereas something like the AG-42 is extremely thin, I can get a much more solid grip. So, since I can get a much more comfortable hold up front, it's easier for me to maintain that lever arm for extended periods of time. Another thing that I think might be lending itself towards this issue is the foregrip. Now, I know I should be placing this further back here. This is not in the right spot for me to be using a rifle of this length, but that would look stupid as hell to be all the way back. I don't want to look like some elite master Navy. Yeah, I don't want to look like that Navy guy. Plus, I'm not about to sacrifice drip for performance, so that wasn't helping me here. But all in all, honestly, I'm very impressed with the way that this gun had shot, aside from the fatigue that I got out of it. Like I said, this was PSA, and I don't know if you guys can tell by the shooting footage that's gonna be peppered throughout here, but it was ejecting super consistently. So despite the fact that this Temu carry handle wasn't holding zero, the gun itself was extremely consistent and extremely comfortable to shoot with. I thought it was pleasant. I didn't have a hard time with recoil or anything. The gun felt nice, solid impulse. Honestly, great job PSA on this one. Some other interesting things to note more features that I think maybe were making my experience a little less positive. Like, this isn't a bad gun, this was fun to shoot, but just the weight distribution. You can see here that the stock is kind of long. It's, you know, definitely further out than I think I would normally keep my rifles, which probably isn't gonna help in terms of handling for me as a shooter. But probably the biggest contender here for those weight distributions is gonna be in regards to the receiver. Now, the AG42 in this roughly weigh about the same amount, but the AG42 does have a full steel receiver, which means there is more weight in the back of the gun. And to make things worse, the original rail was plastic, which means much lighter than this quad rail going on here. So it becomes kind of a conversation similar to that I've had with bullpups, where, you know, the AG42, the weight is further towards the back, or it's more centered even, whereas this very quickly becomes front heavy. It's an M16 though. What's not to love? I got to live out my video game fantasies with this one here. Became some elite tactical battlefield shooter. The only thing not to love about this rifle was the fact that I am shooting it in desert camo with snow on the ground and capris. Otherwise, it was great. I hope you guys liked this video. Know that I froze my butt off for all of you. We're just gonna pretend that the snow was white sands and that I was in the proper environment. Hope to see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Means you got 2x4? Yeah. You got 2x4.